One of the other Renaissance artists that was really famous during this time period is Michelangelo. So we really see in the sculptures that they look a lot like the Roman and the Greek sculptures that really focused on the anatomy, looking at the muscle tone and things of that nature. Other ideas that kind of came about during this time period was science, engineering, and mathematics. So, as a result of the trade with the Middle East, with Muslims, they're going to start to have new scientific advancements. Things like the astrolabe that the Muslims created to kind of be able to map things, the maps, and things of that nature. They also really emphasize in the Muslim faith kind of observing nature, which leads to new approaches to investigation called the scientific method, which is kind of that method that we know today, that 7-step process. Copernicus is one of the major ideas, major people that come out during this time period because he came to the conclusion that it is the sun that is the center of the solar system. So previous to this, the church had kind of influenced the idea that it was really a geocentric system, that the earth was the center of the universe, this idea that man is the center of God's universe. But during the Renaissance, they disproved that. And heliocentric theory, that the earth revolves around the sun, that the sun is the center, becomes widely accepted. We also see advancements in medicine, in anatomy, through the works of Andreas Vesalius, who was the first person to really get to dissect a human body, to understand the muscles, the vein system, and things of that nature. We'll look at some of that work a little bit later. So by the 1500s, a lot of these ideas from the Renaissance had moved to the north through cultural diffusion, through trade, through migration. But the biggest development was the printing press. So Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press, which allowed for books to be printed much quicker and much cheaper. This was a major shift from the Middle Ages because, if you remember, the Middle Ages, monks were reprinting and writing these books by hand. And so movable print and being able to kind of print things mass allowed for books to be able to be printed a lot cheaper, but also a lot quicker. Surprise, surprise, the first book ever printed was the Bible, because the Bible was kind of seen as the number one book at this time period. People are still pretty religious, even if they're focusing on humanism. The other thing that they printed via the printing press was a lot of pamphlets, humanistic literature, things of that nature that really allowed for the Renaissance ideas to travel quickly. People of the Northern Renaissance accepted humanism, but were really more likely to combine it with religious ideas. As we've talked about before, France, Germany, and England, they are going to still be pretty deeply based in the manor system. Feudalism is kind of fallen apart and those kinds of aspects of knights and whatnot, but people are still going to live in these smaller towns, not like Italy that have these big bustling cities with lots of a big merchant class. And so they're going to be more likely to have a deeper religion in the north. Now, the Northern Renaissance art and literature starts to reveal the thoughts and living conditions of the people. So there's very scenes of peasant life. Things are a little bit more dark, a little bit more religious. Two kind of literature people to know from the Northern is Sir Thomas More, who wrote Utopia. So that's kind of where we get that idea of a utopian society or a model society, the perfect society. Erasmus wrote The Praise of Folly, that really focused on it living conditions. So we start to see like art and literature kind of expressing the other experience of people who were not really well represented in society. You see this in Shakespeare's plays all the time, where he represents people who are not necessarily like at the top of society. Overall, the Northern Renaissance subject matter does become more secular, more focused on this humanistic perspective, but it does take quite a while. Okay, so now that we're done, go ahead and do your annotations, your potential test questions, and take the quizzes that will follow. Thanks.